Hello you guys, and welcome back to Simple Investing. This video is going to be super exciting as I'm going to share with you guys some of the insights on why I think the Bitcoin mining companies are the prime candidates for a short squeeze. And later I'm going to do a weekly recap on some of the Bitcoin miner charts. So make sure you guys stick around till the end of the video so you don't miss anything. If you guys enjoyed this video and would like seeing similar content in the future, then please do consider subscribing as well as hitting the like button. So now before we answer the question, guys, let's take a look at retail psychology. So retail in general is very impatient and overall it likes seeing results. So let's say a stock is stagnating or any kind of asset is stagnating or it's dropping. Well, nobody's going to touch it with a 10-foot pole. But the moment they see an asset start climbing in value and they start seeing people around them making money, that's when the retail piles in. And mainstream media is amazing at really feeding off of your fear and greed feelings, and they can really amplify them. And that's exactly what's happening with Bitcoin. I mean, they already started promoting it. There's already a lot of media coverage on it. But I think once Bitcoin's price breaches 100,000, they're going to really start ramming it down everybody's throat. And that's when I think retail will really show up to the scenery, as I personally really haven't felt retail's presence yet. So once this happens, the underlying asset will start having its price driven up, and therefore that will relate down to the miners and it's going to start pushing their prices up. So now to answer the question on why Bitcoin miners are the prime candidates for a short squeeze, well, to look at this, we got to look at what the short interest is in these companies, because that's the prime indication of what could be a potential candidate for a short squeeze. So any company above 10% short interest has a relatively high short interest, okay? Now, any company over 20% short interest has an extremely high short interest. And these companies are the prime candidates for a short squeeze. Now, out of the Bitcoin miners, there's three companies that have a short interest above 20%. And that is Mara, CleanSpark, and WULF. And the other three companies are above 10%. And specifically, they're between 15 and 17%. And that's RIOT, Hut8, and BitDigital. So now you guys, how does a short squeeze happen? Well, what happens is short sellers basically want to cut their losses. And in order to cut their losses, they must buy shares of the asset. Once they buy shares of the asset, that basically closes their short position. And once a certain amount of short sellers does this, it forces another group of short sellers to do it because they also want to cut their losses. And that creates a snowball effect, and that can create very impulsive price action to the upside, obviously. So that's exactly, you guys, what I think will be happening very soon here. Institutions with having a large ownership in these Bitcoin miners have definitely had the ability to manipulate them and hold the prices lower just to load them up. So I really hope you guys didn't get shaken out throughout this whole process and got frustrated and just sold out of these companies, as I believe the most exciting and impulsive part is really coming up soon. So without any further ado, you guys, let's dive on in and take a look at the charts. Okay, you guys, well, let's start with the underlying asset itself. So let's start with Bitcoin. So what has Bitcoin been up to? Well, since November 6th, Bitcoin pulled about a 44% move to the upside here until it stalled out right below 100,000, which is a psychological level. It's not a technical breakout target. It's a psychological level. So it is understood why we retrace from there. A lot of people are nervous, thinking that potentially that's the top. In my opinion, we're going much higher. So there's nothing to worry about. It's just a temporary correction. So as you guys can see here, we've already retraced what it's about 7-8%, something like that. Yeah, 7%. Now, where does this bring us up? Where does it bring us? It brings us to this level here, which is this ascending line. And this line was from run from the previous two peaks here. So that was the peaks in 2021. Now we almost touched it down to the T here. So as Bitcoin's cooled down. And if for whatever reason that line cannot hold, and here we're also riding that 10-day EMA. So as you guys can see here, the day currently is closing above there. So that's good. On the impulsive moves, you definitely want to stay above the 10-day EMA. As you guys can see here on this entire move, we were above it. Throughout the consolidation corrections, we can briefly go under it. But otherwise, on all the impulsive moves, as you guys can see, you just ride that 10-day EMA. So potentially, if we cannot hold this ascending trend line here, we can drop to this area of support here, which was a consolidation period of time for Bitcoin before we blew past this ascending trend line. And this is 87,000 to 91,000. So I would consider that being a strong support. I personally don't see Bitcoin dropping below here. If for whatever reason we were to go lower, there's always a chance we could backtest this flag pattern that we had earlier. That would be about a 30% drawdown, which is not unusual for Bitcoin to do throughout its bull market. There's definitely multiple 20 to 30% drawdowns. I personally don't think that drawdown will happen at this point. Once we break over 100,000, perhaps 105, 110,000, then maybe we'll get hit by one of those 30% drawdowns. But for the time being, I don't think we're quite ready for that yet. And even before we got there, we'd still tap this 50-day MA, 50-day moving average. So before we got down to retesting that flake pattern, this would be our next support here anyways. That would be at around 76,000. But once again, you guys, I personally don't think we'll be dropping below 87,000. So yeah, overall chart's looking really good. Volume on the way up is increasing. Volume on the pullback is decreasing. So that's exactly what you want to see. Mara is up next. So what is Mara looking like? Well, on the larger time frame, I compared this area right here to what Mara was doing kind of back down here in the previous cycle, except obviously the magnitude is much greater and the time frame is also much greater. It's just basically blown up, which is even better. I'd say the structure of the current chart is much better than it was back in 2021. Now, what is Mara looking like on the daily? Well, on the daily, we had a pretty impulsive move here, actually, after we dropped here. We filled the first gap we dropped, pretty much bounced off of that 50-day moving average. And Mara really generated a lot of strength, and it got a lot of tailwinds actually here through adopting a similar strategy as to what MSTR has been doing. And basically, Mara completed a $1 billion offering of 0% convertible senior notes, and these are due at a fairly far out time frame, which is 2030. So that has been giving it tailwinds and propelling it up as the rest of the market has been bleeding, along with Bitcoin having its pullback, obviously, and MicroStrategy has been pulling back. So I believe that's what's been propelling it, as well as obviously people are going to start understanding that Mara has quite a bit of Bitcoin on its balance sheet compared to other miners, and that's also going to work out in its favor as the underlying asset keeps growing in value. So once again, this is looking overly very good, especially for the last little bit. Mara hasn't been doing all that great. So this price development here is looking really good. If anything, I'd call this a back test right here of this line. And I would say we ended the day pretty indecisively. But as soon as Mara is able to break through and close a daily candle above $28, I think it's a really quick trip to $31 and $32. Once we can break through there, I think we're going to be tapping $45 in very short order. So overall, you guys, Mara's looking fantastic. RIOT, what is RIOT looking like? Well, I'd also say similar to Mara. I'd say this entire region definitely gives me very similar vibes as to what RIOT was going through right here. Just once again, stretched out over a longer period of time. And obviously the magnitude of price is also much greater. Better looking chart overall as well. Now, a lot of people are frustrated with RIOT just because it's been kind of range bound here and it's been trapped in this symmetrical triangle. Definitely tried to have multiple breaks out and it just never seems to be able to do it. So yeah, we had one tap here on the 18th of July 2023, somewhere here December 26th 2023, February 22nd 2024, and then the most recent one right here, which was supercharged by some higher volume, November 11 2024. Unfortunately was not able to get above there. Another reject and rejection, and then basically got shot down here, filled the first gap. Second gap, actually I would say quite possible to fill, just because either way the 50-day moving average would be catching up here. We got the support from the bottom of this symmetrical triangle, this ascending line. So it would kind of make sense for RIOT actually to fill this area here, bounce off here, get some of its power for the next move, and then I think we'll be blasting through here this descending trend line of the symmetrical triangle, and that's going to take you guys the quick trip up here to 1841 and 2064. And once we're able to break through that zone, then the next pit stop is 2387. Now, as far as looking at the volume, guys, it's also looking very healthy. As you guys can see here, there's increasing volume on the way up and decreasing volume on the pullback. So that's exactly what you want to be looking for. Overall, RIOT's looking very healthy in my opinion. Clean Spark. Well, this one definitely had quite a nasty drawdown here after a really big pump. So it had a pretty nasty drawdown, filled all its gaps, was hanging out here, consolidating for quite some time until it got a little bit of power and started perking its way up. Now, you guys, it's kind of hanging around here in the area of the previous support, which was 1493. Now, as long as we can keep above there, I wouldn't be too worried. And I mean, either way, this gap is tiny right here. The gap between 1074 and 1136. The MA is right around the top of that gap. Overall, I don't think there's any need to fill it. I think CleanSpark's been already held down long enough. Overall, I'd say the price action is looking pretty good as long as the dailies can keep closing above 1498. I think sooner rather than later, we're going to have a date here with this descending trend line. And I think once we blow through there, it's going to be a fairly quick trip here to about $31. Really not much resistance once we break out through this descending trend line. I mean, the first stop will be probably 23.95, and then yeah, pretty much right after that, you're shooting right up to 31.68. So overall, chart of CleanSpark is looking good. Volume is a little more undecisive than in some of the other miners. It's swinging both ways, both volume on the upside as volume on the downside. It's been pretty high, so I wouldn't say volume's telling much of a story, but overall, I'd say CleanSpark's definitely looking a lot more strong than it was looking a couple of weeks back here. So as long as we hover here around 1483 and we're closing candles above there, I think we'll be breaking above this descending trend line here in a short order. IREN's still battling with this rising wedge. Basically, it had quite some points of contact here. You had a point of contact right here, July 13th, 2023. Another one right here, 29th December 2023. Here we broke out, followed by a retest, failed retest, and basically we broke back down into it. And now we're having another test right here on the 13th of November. Overall, I'd say IREN's price action is looking really good. Basically, we filled this gap right here. Almost filled it. I mean, that's good enough. Almost filled the gap right here. And now we're bouncing off of that 50-day moving average. So overall, it's looking very good. It's sandwiched between the 50-day moving average and the rising, the ascending trend line of this rising wedge. So overall, you guys, IREN's looking really good. Volume's also dropping off here on the red volume. So it's looking good. Once we're able to break out through this line, I think it's going to be a very quick trip to this next resistance here, which is between 1572, which was the peak here of July 9th of 2024, and then of here April and March of 2022, and then the second resistance right here, 1796. Once we're able to blow through that, I think it's a very quick trip to all-time high, just because there's not much resistance on the way up. So overall, IREN's looking really good, you guys. Also very excited for this one, as it's the one that benefits out of both worlds, which is the AI HPC side as well as the Bitcoin side, so it can gather hype from both the sides. WULF, this is definitely a very impressive miner with its price action lately. It's been doing very well, definitely outperforming a lot of the other miners. It's been able to generate a lot of hype from the AI HPC side and obviously as well from the Bitcoin side when it pumps. So it's getting the best of both worlds. And there's a lot of hype surrounding this stock too. So once it broke out from this flake pattern here, it ended up almost reaching its breakout target here, which was 944. It ended up tapping 931, so close enough. Now it's basically consolidating in this zone. This zone is the previous gap. That was the gap to the downside, which it ended up filling. And now it's just consolidating in this area here. And as you guys can see, basically any dips below that line have definitely been getting bought up. So I personally don't see it coming down to touch this 50-day moving average. The gap is essentially filled at this point. And as you guys can see, also decreasing volume here. So overall, WULF is looking very primed, getting ready to make its next leg up. I personally think once it's done its consolidation here, the next blast is going to probably take it to around $12.27. So this one's looking fantastic, you guys. I'm definitely very excited about this one and its future developments. BTBT, Bit Digital, is up next. How is this one looking? It's looking pretty good, you guys. It's trading inside of this rising wedge. It had a couple points of contact right here. Basically, we're looking at the first one was right here, the 30th of June 2023. Another one right here, December 29th, 2023. And then finally, the most recent one here, November 15th, 2024. After which it had pretty big rejection here, which allowed it to fill the first gap. The second gap is pretty much, I'd say, filled. And now it's just been riding this 50-day moving average, which is going to be acting as its support for now. Overall, looking good. Increasing volume on the way up, decreasing volume on the pullback. I'd say it's looking pretty healthy. I could see it basically charging some of its power and momentum here from the 50-day moving average and making another attempt here. I do think by the fourth time it taps it, I think it's going to be a breakout. And once it breaks out, I think it's going to be a very impulsive move up to about $9. And that would be a fairly similar move as to what CIFR did once it broke out of its rising wedge. So overall, you guys, BT is looking great. Another thing to consider is BTBT has a stash of Ethereum. So that's something to differentiate it from a lot of the miners. Ethereum really hasn't started moving, but I could see it generate a lot of hype, and that will definitely give some tailwinds to that price action once Ethereum starts running. And another thing is that Bit Digital's market cap is relatively low compared to other miners. So once Ethereum starts running, I think this one's really going to go. Obviously, that's going to happen once Bitcoin's dominance starts falling. CIFR. CIFR's been trading also within this rising wedge here, out of which it was able to fake you out to the downside, and now basically we pop to the upside, challenging this high here of July 19th of 2024. Now, to me, this looks like just a retest. Basically, gap almost got filled here. I'd say this looks like a retest here of just this ascending trend line here of the rising wedge. So overall, this chart looks very healthy. Volume is looking fantastic. Volume's creeping up on the way up and then dropping on the pullback. So I'd say everything here is looking phenomenal. And once we're able to break through this level here, I think it's going to be a very quick send to about $10 here a share. So yeah, CIFR is also able to benefit out of the AI HPC hype. So they gather hype out of both pools, out of Bitcoin and AI HPC. So yeah, there's definitely going to be a lot of exciting developments for this one. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing how the price action rolls out here. HUT8, it's definitely been having a pretty impulsive move to the upside. Doesn't look like it wants to be slowing down anytime soon. On its way up, it created two gaps here. Gap from 23.67 to 25.47, and then another one right here from 27.22 to 28.76. Now, I personally don't think it's going to be filling these gaps just with the amount of interest and the way it's been grinding up. So I personally do see it consolidating a little bit longer, and this consolidation is actually pretty nice here in the zone between 31.76 and 37.02, as well as it's been forming this flake-shaped pattern. Now, if we look at the flake pole, which I grabbed from right here, the flake pole, and we project a price target here, basically you'd be looking at a price target of about $45.67. So that would be the breakout target out of this flag for HUT8. And either way, there is another resistance right here for HUT8 that's right around 42.27. That's the next important resistance. So yeah, 42.27 to about $45. That's kind of the next target here. As long as HUT8 can basically keep closing its candles above here, this descending trend line here, the lower part of the flag. And as you guys can see, there's a lot of demand here. You can see this huge wick. That just means the buyers really stepped in and picked up bought shares on the dip. And it just keeps grinding through this 10-day EMA as well, so it's holding that up really nicely. The whole move up, it's been kind of using that as support. If you guys look at the volume, same thing. Volume increasing on the way up, decreasing on the way down. It decreased quite a bit, so that's good. And it's having its cool down now before the next move up. So overall, HUT8 looking very healthy, you guys. Hive's looking pretty good. Hive broke out of its symmetrical triangle here, had a decent run up, challenged basically this peak here from 27th of December of 2023. After that, it got shot down. And same thing as you guys can see, increasing volume on the way up, decreasing volume on the way down. That's exactly what you want to be looking out for. If anything, you guys, I would call it the retest of the descending line of this symmetrical triangle. So it looks very healthy. And I would say the 50-day moving average here is catching up. Any day now it's going to catch up. You have this descending trend line of the symmetrical triangle, and then you have your gap. I'd say this is a perfect place for Hive to bounce. So if it can show that it has strength and it can bounce from there and people really buy it up, I think that's a perfect point to pivot. And after that, I think Hive is really going to start jetting with pretty much, yeah, the next target is right here, $8.99, and the breakout target of the symmetrical triangle is at $13, followed by the next resistance of about $14.65. So this is kind of the zone I'd be looking out for Hive once it has its next impulsive move is right around here. Bitfarms. I personally don't really pay much attention to this one, especially with the takeover offer from Riot. I just feel like that created a lot of sell pressure on this stock, and I feel like Riot's been also trying to keep down the share price lower so it can obviously get it for a better price. And therefore, I think it's been getting kind of choked out on this entire move. Now, basically, Bitfarms has been struggling with this descending trend line this whole time. It had a couple touches here, one touch on February 27th, another one here 20th of June, 12th of July, 15th of July of 2024, and then this final one here, November 14th. It had a very brief overshoot here, looked like a breakout and potentially a retest. However, it was unable to hold above this descending trend line and utilizing it as support. So ended up getting shot back down, and now it's trading below that line again. It ended up catching some support around the 50-day moving average, so potentially it's going to be able to hold up from there and re-challenge this descending trend line again. As long as it can hold above this 50-day moving average, I don't see it filling this gap here, even though the gap is pretty close. So, I mean, it could fill it, and it would probably be even better for it to do so. And then same with volume, as you guys can see, impulsive volume on the way up, increasing volume, and then decreasing volume on the way down. So overall, it's looking good. I think this one's going to be a lagger. Just because of, once again, the whole riot thing, and eventually, I mean, people will start using the narrative of it's a hidden gem, that there is value in this play, and it's basically undervalued, right? It's basically undervalued, and it's going to catch up to some other players. So what it's got to do, it's got to break up over this descending trend line here. As soon as it breaks out from there, then the first target I'd say is probably about $4.49. Next one, $5.20, and after that, you guys, you're flying probably around $6.50, something like that. So overall, looking okay for Bitfarms. Once again, I haven't touched this one and probably won't be touching this one, but it's definitely could be a value play in the future. Argo blockchain. This is personally not on my watch list. This was just one of the requests from the last YouTube video I've done, just to give a little bit of insight on what I think about this chart. Personally, I didn't look at Argo throughout the last bull run, and same with this bull run. I'd say this bull run, basically nobody's interested in this company. So looking at what's been happening here, well, there was a bit of a symmetrical triangle here, out of which Argo ended up breaking down from, then consolidated, had a little bit of a fake out, and then we pumped to the upside, followed by a pretty big retrace, basically gave back all the gains, and overall we're not really that high off of what the low has been anyways. We're about only a 3x from there. So it's been pretty much consolidating, we could say, from the area of January 2023. We've been consolidating up until now. So that's going to be pretty much almost 2 years, you guys. That's a very long consolidation. And then the recent pattern here that Argo has been forming is a descending triangle. Typically, descending triangles have a breakdown, but just with the interest in Bitcoin and all that, I think it's going to be safe from that. So, I mean, either way, you're running out of time here. So I think a breakout or breakdown will be happening very shortly here, as this descending trend line will push the price action down if it's the breakdown. So one thing to note, volume has been increasing here. So potentially that could signal that there's some interest from retail and they're stepping in. Basically, once we're able to break out from this descending trend line, I think it's a pretty quick trip here to $1.81. Which is its resistance. So it's definitely been a strong resistance. And once we can break through there, we're going to be shooting up fairly quickly to $2.54 and $2.83, $2.54. And once you're able to break out through there, then basically we're going to be challenging the all-time highs from this current bull market, which is around 441. And I think that will all happen in pretty short order, as there's just not really much support and resistance on the way up. DMGI. The interesting thing, you guys, is I see a lot of interest. A lot of people were looking specifically at this chart. There's a lot of similarities between what happened here in the previous bull run right here. Obviously, it was at a much lower level. Now it's at a much higher level. Basically, a long-term consolidation, establishing a base before the next move up. So if we look at it here, guys, overall, we broke down here actually from this range bound support here that it had, and we bounced off this trend line right here that it had from the previous touches here of December of December of 2022 and October of 2023. And as you guys can see here, volume also picked up here. So the dip has definitely been bought. And personally, DMGI is also running out of time here, and I really think it's going to have a very quick date here with this descending trend line right here of this. let's call it symmetrical triangle. And the breakout target out of this would be right around $1.05. So overall, I think this one's going to have a very quick trip up just because it's been suppressed for quite a while, and it is a small cap. So the small cap time is really coming. The larger miners have been running, so soon the money will start pouring into the small caps. Now, there is something very interesting, you guys, between this chart and the next chart I'll cover, which was a request from somebody in the comments from my previous video. It's the price action between DMGI and SATO. So DMGI did about 490% on the way up, and then it did a drop of about 49% to the downside. So you guys remember those numbers for anyone that's interested in SATO, as it's very interesting how similar these charts are. But yeah, overall, you guys, everything's looking pretty good for DMGI. I like that there's a spike of volume here. Definitely an increase, some of the highest volume since this bull market has started for DMGI. So overall, I think great developments. I think the price action is going to start shooting. It's going to be a quick trip to $135, and then yeah, followed by 199 and 243. And after that, it's blue skies if it can get there. So yep, DMGI chart's looking really good, guys. SATO Technologies. Now, this is personally not a stock that I really look at or have considered, but it was requested in one of the comments from my previous video, so I figured I'll throw it in here. And there's definitely some very interesting relationship between DMGI's performance and SATO's performance, as I mentioned when I was covering the DMGI chart. So as you guys can see here, if we look right here from the low to the top, we're looking at about 470%. I believe DMGI was 480 or 490%, so pretty much down to the T. Very similar performance on the move to the upside. As far as the move to the downside, DMGI's move down was about 48%, SATO was about 68%, so about 20% more. It definitely got punished harder on the way down. One reason to this could be that SATO definitely doesn't gain as much interest and hype as DMGI does. DMGI is more well known. There's definitely more money coming into it, and it's had a better, let's say, past performance throughout the last cycle. People can gauge that, people have seen it, and it's been the all-star of the last cycle, just delivered the best returns. So overall, that could be one of the reasons. Just looking at the volume too, there hasn't been all that much interest in SATO up until around here. What we're looking at right here is basically this ascending trend line. We've had 3 touches here, a touch right here, which was at the bottom. That was December 28, 2022. Another touch right here, June 21st, 2024. And then 2 more touches right here pretty recently. That was throughout October and November. And basically now we're trading in this pattern that looks to be like a broadening wedge. So volume increase, that's another positive sign. The biggest volume actually that this stock has seen for a very long time. So that's a positive sign, as well as it's holding this support here. So I think once it's able to generate some strength and make its way up here to this ascending trend line, I think we're going to be able to blast through it, especially as Bitcoin continues on its way up. And the next stop, I think it's going to be a very quick stop to about 55 to 63 cents, just because it's been choked out for quite a while. So volume also on the way up green, on the way down decreasing. So that's a good sign. Overall, this chart does not look bad. It is a small miner. So once again, it's going to be a catch-up trade. It's going to be one of the last plays to get played. And once again, I would roll my dice on DMGI just because it's more well known than this one. CBIT, my favorite Bitcoin miner, my #1 Bitcoin miner stock pick for the year of 2025. Basically, we're playing out a very similar pattern as to what we were playing out last time here, which is a falling wedge. And then after that, you guys can see a pretty impulsive move to the upside. Similarly, now we're trading in a falling wedge, as well as we've been in this consolidation. Very similar actually to what DMGI went through throughout 2020. It was consolidating for about a year. It was range bound between 7.5 and 11 cents. And once it blasted, it never looked back. Basically went up about 43x within 3 months once it was able to get out of that range. So the takeaway out of that is the bigger the base, the stronger the blast. Now, CBIT has been range bound here for about 2 years now. And as I can see here, there is definitely an increase in volume. So that's a good sign. I'd definitely be eyeing this resistance here, this descending trend line. Once we're able to break out through there, I think it's going to be an extremely impulsive move right up to 22 cents, just because it's been suppressed for so long. So I could definitely see a pretty big pop off once it gets free of the chains. So overall, this chart is looking great. It's doing what it's been doing for a while. I know a lot of people are impatient, and also there is not much awareness to this company. I would really like there to be more eyes brought to it, just because I think it's a amazing company, and I really do think it has potential to be one of the best runners of this cycle. And as always, you guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.